Hey everyone, and welcome to Sasquatch Theory. On this episode, we have Will from Upstate New York, and he wanted to discuss his Bigfoot experiences at his family's cabin that he had years ago. The Adirondack Mountains are a massive set of mountains in northeastern New York which form a circular dome approximately 160 miles wide and covering about 5,000 square miles. It's an excellent place to experience Bigfoot activity, and I have taken several reports from that area in the past. When people think of New York, they generally think of New York City, but the truth is, there is a ton of forest in that area. We have finally reached 100,000 subscribers on the channel, and I really want to thank everyone who's supported the channel in the past and for the people that have shared their Bigfoot encounters and experiences with me here on Sasquatch Theory. If you guys can, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you have a Bigfoot encounter that you would like to share here on the show, please get in touch with me at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. Alright guys, with all that being said, let's dive into Will's Bigfoot experiences from upstate New York. All right, Will, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing excellent. Will, if you would, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and your Bigfoot encounters and experiences from the very beginning, please.
Well, I grew up in upstate New York in the Adirondack Mountains, and I spent the first 10 to 12 years of my life there. And then I moved more upstate where I live now. But I go up to the cabin, which we still own there, every summer, all the time. My father was using it full time to live in. He's passed now, so now we just use it as a summer cabin. And I'm going to tell you two experiences that I heard secondhand, and then I'll tell you my experience. Growing up, my father always believed that the possibility that Bigfoot could exist was there. He just never had seen anything himself. And the cabin was built in the 70s, so my dad has lived there for 40 years. One of the first stories was there was a friend of his, a lady, who did not believe in Sasquatch or Bigfoot at all. She showed up at his house one day, our cabin, and said, I need to talk to you. And my father said, well, come on in. And she sat down and she said that she had been driving home from her job and it was dark. And she had seen what she thought was a young deer on the side of the road. So she slowed the car down so she didn't, in case it ran out, she didn't want to hit it. And she was very surprised when she found that the deer was actually dangling upside down. And it was in the hand of something large and hairy. And she said within, it seemed like just 2 or 3 seconds, it took 3 or 4 steps across the road with the deer by the neck in his hand and into the other side of the woods. And it scared her so much she couldn't go to bed that night. That was the first story I know of. And I think that was about 2005, 2006. About 2008, my father ended up calling me one day and telling me that he was hiking back in the woods across the road. It's probably about a mile back in up on a ridge. He used to hike that all the time. And he said that he looked downward off the ridge and there was what he thought was a mama bear and a cub there just sitting down. And he said it must have smelled them because they turned around, and he said it wasn't a bear. And all of a sudden, both of them stood up and just started walking away on 2 feet. They were bipedal. And that was, to my knowledge, the only experience he ever had with Bigfoot. Now, my story came in 2018. As I said, my dad's gone now, so we use the cabin as a summer cabin, and my oldest brother and I were outside in the yard, and it was dusk, just about to get dark, and we were sitting by the fire, and we have a rowboat in the yard that is tipped over and it doesn't get into it. And we heard something loud hit it. And at first, I said to my brother, I said, I think that must have been a pine cone. That was the first thing I thought of, that there was a squirrel in the tree up above or something that knocked it down. So we sat there for about 10 seconds and I kept looking at the boat, and all of a sudden we heard another loud bang. And this time I saw it. And I went over and grabbed it and to see what it was, and it was a stone. And I told my brother, I said, "There's a stone out here." I said, "I don't know how it got in here." The nearest neighbor each way, the one neighbor is probably about a quarter mile up the road. The next neighbor is probably about a half mile up the road. And then there's a lot of summer cabins up there that people aren't there full time. Well, we sat there probably about 10 minutes talking about it. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, from our left, about a quarter mile away, we hear this yell, this scream. And we grew up there. We know the sounds of all the animals that we have there. We have coyotes, we have some bobcat, we have uh, a small moose population, deer, black bear, but there is nothing, I mean, nothing that we know of that could have made that noise. And I don't even think a human could have made that noise. Well, just about 10 seconds later, this was off to our left. Off to our right, we hear another similar noise. And again, it was probably a quarter mile to a half mile away. And these two things were trying to communicate with each other. So at that point, my brother's like, "Well, I think we probably should go in the house for the night." So we ended up putting the fire out and heading into the cabin for the night. Later on, I went out and did look to see if I could find some tracks and stuff. And there's a pond back there where where the second scream came from. And I did find a footprint track. It wasn't deep, and it was probably, I would say, only about 9 inches. So I'm assuming if it was Bigfoot, it was juvenile. And also, I've found tree structures back there. It just didn't make sense and why they would be there.
Yeah, that is
Yes,
interesting. Thank you for sharing all that with me. Do you have any more
you're welcome.
experiences you want to share, or was that everything?
The only other experience I have, and again, this is secondhand. I've been doing paranormal research for 20 years, and I've done thousands of ghost investigations. And one of them I like to do is an old cemetery in PA, and we have to get permission from the forest rangers to be there, and they usually meet us and open up the gate to let us go in. But they're pretty nice about it, as long as we pick up after ourselves before we leave and leave stuff, cleaned up. But I asked, he said, the one forest ranger said to me, "You guys are brave being here at night." He said, "I drive up this road and I just shine my light and then leave to make sure no one's in here." I said, "Oh, are you afraid of ghosts?" He goes, "Well, it's not just that." He goes, "I've seen and heard things from strange creatures that I can't explain." And he goes, "So I'm not walking up in here at night." Um, he said that one of his coworkers just laughs about it, but one of his other coworkers said that he's experienced similar stuff in that area. And just be uh just be diligent when he's out there.
Yeah, that is interesting. So the forest rangers let you guys do investigations at the cemetery?
They do. They do. They're pretty nice about that stuff.
Yeah, that is interesting. Has the forest ranger had experiences with like cryptid creatures and paranormal there? Was that kind of what he was referring to?
Yeah, yeah, because he said, well, it's not just the ghosts. He said the noises he heard and the yells and the screams. He said he's heard whoops and different things like that when he's been out there. So like I said, he said he doesn't even really get out of his car anymore. He just takes the light and shines it and make sure there's no one out, no kids out there or whatever, and then he heads back back to the station.
Yeah. And with the research that you've done, do you think there's a correlation between the paranormal activity and the cryptids?
Oh, I definitely do. I mean, there's a lot of different correlation between them. Like I mean, you've been studying this for a while. You know about the lights, the light spheres that would probably show up when there's Bigfoot around,
Mhm.
and just different things of that nature. I definitely think these things. Um, I'm not saying they're ghosts because I don't believe that, but I believe that Bigfoot may be, from a different dimension, ultra dimensional or interdimensional, sorry. And this is them coming in and out, how they can travel. And I don't know. There's still a lot to study about Bigfoot research that we don't know. And it's gonna take a team of people getting out there and researching it and finding something conclusive to be able to say they really exist.
Yeah, I agree. That lines up with my research as well. I've
Yeah.
noticed with a lot of my guests, they'll be having Bigfoot activity outside, with a real physical creature or creatures. And inside, they're having paranormal activity such as like shadow figures, um, just things moving around, seeing orbs in their house, outside of the house. And they just wonder if it's connected in some way. I've also noticed in certain research areas, there's always a cemetery nearby, and the Bigfoot activity seems to take place around that cemetery. I don't know if it's a coincidence or if it's somehow tied in, but I do believe that somehow these entities, ghosts, paranormal activity, whatever you want to call it, they're using portals, and these physical creatures such as Sasquatch, Dogman, they're using portals as well, but it's really hard to say. That's the only connection that I've been able to obtain through my research. But I have noticed
Yeah.
that these orbs are seen with UFO alien activity, paranormal activity, and cryptid activity, which is strange.
Yeah. We do have an area. It's about an hour from my house, and I was just up there last weekend. And it's called the Connecticut Hill Forest Reserve, and it's here in upstate New York. And I don't know what it is about this area, but there are so much paranormal activity that's coming out of this area. There's one of the oldest cemeteries in the state is there, and there's Bigfoot encounters constantly coming out of there of people having sightings, and UFO sightings are constantly coming out of there. I don't know what it is about this area, but it seems to be the trifecta of paranormal activity in my area. So I tried to get up there as much as I can just to walk around and take a look.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
And if you would tell us a little bit about your group's name and the research that you guys do.
Okay. Like I said, I've been doing ghost investigations for very long time, but I've always had an interest in cryptids, and that's where I wanted to take the next journey of my life. And I left the ghost hunting group to in the hands of someone else who I've worked with for many years, and they're doing very well. But I started the National Cryptid Research Association, and basically, we want to help give a voice to people who have had these experiences and have been told that they're crazy. Because I'm sure that some of these are misidentifications, especially if people aren't used to being in the woods or what have you. But it doesn't matter because the experience to that person that they had is still very real and still very scary, and they still need help. And if we can at least give them some peace of mind, then that's what I want to do. But yeah, that's why I started the National Cryptid Research Association. Um, we have a website, nationalcryptid.com, and people can find us on our Facebook group, National Cryptid Research Association, and they're more than welcome to join the group. I love hearing about people's experiences, and I want to get out and help people.
Well, thank you for sharing that with all of us.
Yeah.
Why did you leave the paranormal group behind?
Um, the ghost part, I still do it about 3 to 4 times a year, but I've been doing it for 15, 20 years. And after a while, when you're sitting watching a rocking chair for hours at a time to see if it rocks, you kind of just get a little fed up of it. It really does take its toll on you in some cases, but I still do some of the bigger investigations 3 to 4 times a year. There's events that I've gone and I've put on at the Erie and Buffalo County Naval Museum, where we've helped raise money for them. Um, different stuff like that that I enjoy doing, some of the bigger stuff.
This activity, did it follow you back home? Did it like play a role on your mental health? Not saying anything bad about that, but I mean like psychologically, like did it affect you like as far as experiencing the activity? And after a while you
I
got your answers, is that what you're saying? Or you got bored with it?
Yeah. No, eh, it's not so much getting answers. It was more that I really enjoyed helping people. But there was one experience, and there was a large, mini mansion that we investigated, and it was one of my last big investigations with the group. And I don't know what it was about this place, but it just the energy there felt so down, and the sorrow felt so down. When first of all, there was supposed to be 6 of us that went on this investigation. We were staying the night there, and it ended up only being 3 of us. 2 of the people came down with the flu. One of the girls went to leave her house, and for some reason ended up having a colony of bees in front of her door, and she's allergic to bees. So she had to call and have that come removed. So it ended up being 3 of us who went to this place. And we walked into this home, and immediately all 3 of us ended up getting sick to our stomach. And we were heading to the bathroom one right after the other. And the activity in that place just got crazier throughout the night. I had electronic devices. I had a tablet that stopped working, and it was fully charged. And as a matter of fact, once I got home, a week and a half later, it came back on and worked after that. But for that night, it stopped working for a week and a half. It wouldn't work, and all of a sudden, it just came back on. Um, we experienced a door slam right in front of us that night at this place, and for years, I would say probably a good 2 years, I was having dreams of this place where the spirits were taunting me to come back. And it has stopped over the last year and a half, but that's because the building burned down. It's no longer there. It was a pile of rubble after the fire, and they cleaned it up. And since then I've had no dreams, no experiences about it, but that was a weird experience I had in the paranormal that made me kind of sit back and go, all right, I think I wanna explore other things now.
Yeah, I'm glad that you took a break from that, and I've experienced the same myself in the past. I was just doing research for myself, trying to figure out what was going on in an old house that I used to live in, and it just seemed like
Hmm.
there was a lot of negative energy there. Strange things were occurring in the house as far as voices, things moving and slamming, just a lot of weird stuff, and it just seemed like after all of that took place, I started just feeling sick all the time, feeling down, negative. Seemed like everything that I tried in life was failing. All the things that I've built up in my life were just not going anywhere, and just a
Wow.
lot of negative things. So I stopped doing the research, stopped messing with it, and eventually I got into Bigfoot research, saying, okay, this is better than the ghost activity, the paranormal research. But somehow it ties in and brings you back into the paranormal. So there's always
It
that.
does. It does. And, I've been doing this for 20 years now. I absolutely love doing this. And like I said, one of the things I love more about it than anything else was helping people. I've done investigations, ghost investigations, where I've gone to people's houses and we found a logical explanation for everything that was happening. And it's so nice when they turn around and say, you know what? I feel safer about going to my home now. And I've had that happen multiple times. There's no feeling like that. And I want to do the same for people with cryptids now.
Yeah. So like a logical explanation as in it wasn't what they thought it was as far as like Bigfoot or
Yeah.
paranormal. Okay.
No. Yeah, like, for instance, this one, guy, he was, I think, 19. He was just moved out to his first place, and before he would go into his bedroom, his door would open, and we were able to find a certain spot on the floor where it was a loose floorboard that would open his door when he went in, and, for him, he didn't know what was going on. So for him, it was a very real and very scary experience. So he was extremely happy that we were able to explain what was happening. And he actually called us about a week later and said, I have felt so much safer being here now that you guys have been here.
Yeah, that's good because with the Bigfoot
Yeah.
activity, when people ask me what I think about like a track they may have found or just deadfall, when I tell them the truth, it seems to upset them. Like, I
Yeah.
just think it's natural. And, people will be like, well, I don't really
Yeah.
think you know what you're talking about. So that's good that, with the paranormal, people find relief.
Yeah.
You can find an explanation as to what it is. But with my experiences, it kind of upsets people. Maybe because they want it
Yep.
to be what they're claiming it is, but I just call it how it is.
Yeah. No. And I do the same thing. If I don't think something's paranormal, then I won't call it paranormal. It really has to stand out to me for me to say, "Oh yeah, that's a Bigfoot tree structure." A few log or sticks laying over a log or something to me isn't essentially Bigfoot activity. Something I would look for is like huge logs being placed in trees, or at the Connecticut Hill, I have found young trees that have been pulled over and the other sides have been driven into the ground. And I just had no explanation for that. So stuff like that, I'm willing to say, okay, I think this might be something here. But like I said, if I see a few sticks laying on the log, I'm not going to call it Bigfoot activity.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah,
Um, I just look for like geometrical patterns, things that are impossible to be constructed by the wind or deadfall. And there's got to be
yeah,
multiple structures around, unless it's just one really good one. But
yeah,
yeah, it's not easy to tell people. No, I think it's just deadfall. So here recently, I just kind of agree, just nod my head, and it's just hard to tell people
yep,
that's not what it is. But
yeah. No, I know. And a lot of it, I think, is some people, they're not used to being out in the woods, and they see this stuff and they're not familiar with it. That may be one of the reasons why.
yeah, I think so. Or they'll see real structures on TV shows,
Yeah.
and like you said, they don't really go out in the woods much. So when they find it, they're just kind of saying, "Oh, this is the same thing," but I don't think they really know what
Well,
to look for. And people are just asking questions. They're trying to figure it out themselves, and it's a learning process.
I do a lot of events, and people are always asking me, "What do you think of the TV shows?" And I tell them, I said, I think they're going out and doing real investigations. But let me ask you this. If you were watching a Bigfoot show and the first episode, nothing happened, and then the second episode, nothing happened, and the third episode, nothing happened, would you keep watching it? Probably not.
Mhm.
Just keep that in mind. I'm not saying they're faking evidence, but I'm just saying keep that in mind. This is television, and the main goal of television is to make money.
Yeah.
That's what people want ultimately. So
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so when your dad saw those two creatures, did he describe what they look like?
he said that the one was about half the size of the other. So I'm assuming it was a mother and juvenile. Uh, he said when it turned around, he said their face looked almost like human features, but it wasn't quite human. He said it wasn't quite ape. He said that he noticed, especially on the larger one, that it seemed like there was no neck. He said that the shoulders seemed to go so high and were so muscular that it just seemed to have the shoulders and then the head. The younger one, I don't know. I can't remember if he described anything about the younger one, other than it was shorter at the time. Um, but he said he definitely remembers the bigger one. And the lady who I talked about earlier with the that saw it with the deer, she had some somewhat same description, where it just had these massive shoulders and she doesn't remember the neck.
Yeah, yeah, that is
Yeah.
interesting. Um, did the lady ever have any more activity after that encounter?
I couldn't tell you because I didn't hear anything else after that.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Uh,
And
Yeah,
that night by the cabin, when you heard the noises, what did they sound like?
it was this whooping sound, but it was more like a scream whoop. It's hard to explain, and there's no way I could even try to recreate it. Um, it was just something that we had never ever heard before, and I go up there all the time. I haven't heard it since, and I've been going up there for 6 years since, and it was just that one experience I had. And I even looked in the woods. Like I said, it was starting to get dusk, starting to get dark. I even looked in the woods. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. People say they associate smells with Bigfoot. I didn't smell anything either. So all I have to go on was the sounds. I can't I don't think I can convince anyone that what I had was Bigfoot activity. However, in my heart, I know that that's what I experienced.
Yeah. How loud was the sound? Was it like a tornado siren or was it just like a person
Oh,
screaming at the top of their lungs?
no, this was way louder than a person. I don't know if a human with a megaphone could have made this type of sound that I heard and how loud it was. It sounded like something huge with a huge lung capacity to make that kind of sound. There's just no way a human could have done it.
Yeah, I've heard this a similar vocalization one time in the woods whenever I was bow hunting. It was like in the middle of the day around October, I think, and
Mhm.
one of these things whooped and it sounded like a tornado siren or like a sonic boom. It was that loud.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what we heard, and I've been trying to figure out why we heard that and why it was there that night. The only thing I can think of is that when we're not there, they use our yard as a pattern to get across the road, to cross from one side of the forest to the other. And maybe I didn't look, but maybe there's a trail over there, an animal trail or something that the animals use. And when I get up there this summer, I'm going to have to go over there and look. But trails tend to change all the time when you're out in the woods. But that's the only thing I can think of is we were in its way, and it could have very easily hurt us, and it didn't. And honestly, I don't think Bigfoot are out there trying to hurt people. I know there's a lot of people out there who are scared and have stories of like that. I think they just more want to be left alone, and this is their way of scaring us off, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think
Yeah,
most Bigfoot creatures just want to be left alone, but sometimes people get in their way and sometimes they get hurt. Let's see, what
yeah.
else? Do you think you said they were communicating with each other? What do you think they were trying to say?
I don't know. Honestly, like I said, I've thought about it, and I think it was a warning that there was someone there. That's the only thing I can think of, is that it was warning the creature, the Bigfoot on the other side, that we were there. Um, it's like I said, I really think that this thing wanted to get together with the other one, and we were in its way blocking it. So it might have been a communication call, letting a warning, letting them know that someone was there.
Yeah, it's very possible. And like you said earlier, they're probably trying to travel through the area and the cabin
Yeah,
happened to be occupied by people and maybe it upset them, or like you also mentioned that they were communicating to each other that, you know, someone's there,
yeah,
or, like warning the rest of the clan, like don't go over there.
yep. And I definitely think that that was probably the possibility of what happened.
Yeah. And with your future investigations, what do you plan on doing next? Do you have an active area that you're researching, or are you looking for something new?
Well, right now I do a lot. I'm going up to Connecticut Hill a lot, where I said we have a lot of experiences, and also just going up north to the Adirondacks to my cabin. And there are some big lakes that nobody ever goes to. They're quite a hike in. One's a couple miles in, and the other's 4 miles in. And I want to get up there and take a look and see what I can find. Put up some trail cameras. If I can find some gaming trails, put up some trail cameras. See if I can capture anything there.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. In the future, what would you do if you find out that this physical creature is able to disappear, turn into orbs, and mind speak to people? Like if you actually experience that, like what would you think? Are you going to think that it's paranormal, tied in with ghosts, demons, or would you think that they're just interdimensional?
I think it's more interdimensional, but also paranormal. Um, I honestly, I've heard of the people hearing the voices that Bigfoot has spoken to them, and I don't know. I've never experienced anything like that, and I don't think I can comment on it unless I've had that kind of experience. And so, right now I haven't. But I think it would change the way that we do investigations with them. I think I might get out some of my old ghost hunting tools and test that stuff out, like my EMF meters and stuff like that, to see if I could get any evidence with that as well. Then,
Yeah, that sounds like a good game plan.
yeah.
Let's see. The tracks that you found, you said they look like juvenile footprints. Did you ever cast them or take any photos?
No, I did take a photo, and I have the photo on an SD card, and I've been trying to find it. It's around here somewhere in one of the boxes, so I have to find it, but I do have a photo of it. It was not deep enough to cast. And I wasn't actually out there investigating at the time. I was just out there taking a walk down one of the trails out near the cabin. And when I there's a large pond out there, and that's where I found this track, and I found, that weird tree structure that I still can't call that Bigfoot activity. It definitely could have been done by a human, but that's where I found that stuff, and I did take the picture of it. There's a lot of deer and bear. We got a lot of black bear up there. As a matter of fact, when I was up there last time, when I found that print, I had a big black bear come out and run the other direction when I was there the last time. So there's definitely a lot of food there. There's water. Everything's there that a Bigfoot would need to survive.
Yeah, it sounds like a good area.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for me?
Nope, not right now.
Okay. Well, when you go back out to the forest, make sure that you keep your head on a swivel and just be diligent about all your work. And the best advice that I can give is you can look for Bigfoot all day long in every area, large forest, whatever it may be. But the best
Mhm.
way to get evidence and real activity is to find people who are experiencing these things. You know, people that are saying this thing's been coming up to my house. I seen it at the edge of the woods. If you can get in on an area like that, you'll really be able to get some good evidence, because it's really hard just going out to random areas or areas that have had Bigfoot
Yeah.
activity in the past. And yeah, I just think if you can find somebody who's having activity right now, you can really capitalize on some good evidence.
All right. Well, I appreciate the advice.
Yeah, yeah, it's no problem. And Will, that answers all of my questions. Unless you have anything else that you'd like to add and anything else you'd like to
Nope,
share. Okay.
not right now.
All right. Well, I appreciate you for sharing your website, your Facebook, and the group all together. And if anyone listening can go and check it out, that'd be excellent.
All right, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, it's no problem. You enjoy your Sunday, and I appreciate the time that you took to talk about all this with me.
All right. You're very welcome. Take care.
All right. Take care. Bye. All right, Will, thank you very much for sharing your Bigfoot encounters and experiences with me here on the channel. And it sounds like the Sasquatch were not happy that you guys were in the area. A lot of times when there's properties that haven't been visited in quite a while, people show up and these creatures happen to be around, and it maybe throws them off and makes them angry. I think the reason they react the way they do sometimes is to push people out of the area, show them that they aren't comfortable with people being around, and possibly they're warning each other that there's danger nearby. I think it can be dangerous to be around certain clans of Sasquatch, and you just never know what could happen, especially if you're camping out in the middle of the woods by yourself at nighttime. You never know if one of these creatures will come in and just tear you apart. A lot of times we hear stories where these creatures are really friendly with people. They'll leave gifts and people say that they are kind. But in other instances, people claim that these things are very menacing and they're out there to get people. And you just never know, because you can't really judge what a Sasquatch is going to do because we don't have enough information on them. So it does seem like there's good ones and bad ones. But another thing that I find strange, and I've noticed it myself, that where people are having Bigfoot activity, a lot of times there's paranormal activity taking place on the property, and it's too hard to determine if they go hand in hand, and it's really hard to solve one mystery with another, but it is happening. Thank you everyone for listening. Take care and be safe out there.